The morning after our wedding, my husband's mother handed me a list and said, "From now on, you'll be cooking, cleaning, and serving the family. That's your duty as a wife." My husband smiled. "It's just tradition." I smirked and said, "Then you'll love the new tradition I started." Their smug faces dropped when they saw who I had hired instead. I married Ethan thinking we were partners, thinking we had the same values, thinking that in 2024, basic respect in a marriage wasn't something I'd have to fight for. I was wrong. We got married in Charleston, South Carolina. Beautiful ceremony. Great food. The whole thing felt like a dream. I woke up the next morning still feeling like I was floating, until I walked into the kitchen. Ethan's mother, Diane, was sitting at the table, sipping coffee like she was some Victorian-era matriarch waiting to assign morning chores. She smiled at me, then slid a printed list across the table. "From now on," she said, her voice sickly sweet, "these are your responsibilities as a wife." I actually laughed. I thought she was joking. Then I read it. Cook all meals for the household. Clean the house daily. Do Ethan's laundry. Serve Ethan and his father before serving myself. Never argue with Ethan. Always ask permission before making plans. Attend all family gatherings and assist with setup and cleanup. Maintain a presentable appearance at all times. Respect the chain of command. I set the paper down slowly. "You're serious?" Diane nodded like this was completely normal. Ethan, standing behind her, smiled and shrugged. "It's just tradition, babe." Oh no. I felt my entire soul leave my body. I turned to Ethan. "You actually think this is acceptable?" He had the audacity to laugh. "It's how things work in my family." At that moment, I knew exactly what kind of man I had married. And I also knew exactly what I was going to do. Before I could even respond, the doorbell rang. I smiled. Perfect timing. Ethan frowned. "Who is that?" I walked past him and opened the door. Standing there in crisp uniforms were two professional cleaners and a personal chef. "Right on time," I said, stepping aside. The cleaners, two women dressed in matching polos, smiled politely. The chef, a middle-aged woman named Andrea, nodded. Diane gasped. Ethan froze. "What is this?" Diane snapped. I turned back to them, still smiling. "Oh, don't worry, I already started a new tradition. See, in my family, women aren't servants. We work hard and, when we can, we pay for services that make our lives easier. Since I have a full-time job and my own money, I decided to hire help." Diane's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "This is ridiculous." "Why?" I tilted my head. "You had no problem making me the unpaid help. You should be thrilled that the work is getting done." The chef, Andrea, stepped inside and smiled warmly at Diane. "I'll start on breakfast." Diane's face turned red. "This is not how things are done in this house." I gestured to the cleaners, who were already pulling out their supplies. "Well, I'm in this house now, and this is how I do things." Ethan grabbed my arm and yanked me into the hallway. "Are you trying to humiliate me?" he hissed. "Are you serious right now?" I yanked my arm away. "You expected me to cook, clean, and serve you like some 1950s housewife, and I'm the one humiliating you?" He ran a hand down his face. "This is just how things work." "My mom and dad," I cut him off. "I am not your mother. And this is not the marriage I signed up for. You're being dramatic." "No, Ethan. You're being sexist. If you wanted a maid, you should have married one." His jaw clenched. "I just thought you'd want to be part of the family." "Oh, I do. But if I'm joining your family, then you're joining mine. And in my family, men pull their weight. So either you get on board, or we can have this marriage annulled today." His face dropped. The next few days were tense. Diane hated the new arrangement. She tried everything, complaining, sulking, making snide comments about how wives these days just don't want to work hard. She even tried to fire the staff behind my back. That was fun. Andrea called me, confused. "Your mother-in-law just told me our services were no longer needed?" I smiled. "Oh, did she? Well, lucky for you, she's not the one paying you." Andrea laughed. "That's what I thought. Just wanted to confirm." When I confronted Diane, she waved a hand. "I was just trying to restore order." I folded my arms. "Your version of order is just me doing all the work. If you want things done a certain way, you can do them yourself." She glared. "You're lazy." I laughed. "You mean because I won't let you turn me into a servant?" She stomped away. Ethan sulked. He barely spoke to me for a week. Wouldn't even eat the food Andrea cooked, which was hilarious because this woman was a 5-star chef. Finally, one night, he snapped. "I don't even know who you are anymore," he shouted. "Oh, you mean now that I won't sacrifice my entire life to keep your mom happy?" He let out a bitter laugh. "Why did you even marry me?" "Because I thought you were different. Because I thought you saw me as an equal." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I didn't expect you to change everything. I stared at him. You expected me to just accept it. He didn't respond. That silence told me everything. Ethan was distant. I let him be. If he needed time to process the fact that I wasn't going to be his personal housemaid, that was his problem. I wasn't about to beg him to treat me like an equal. But the tension in the house was suffocating. Diane was practically vibrating with rage every time she saw the cleaning staff wiping down the counters or Andrea setting the table. Then, the real games began. One night, Ethan walked in and muttered, "We're having dinner at my parents' house. They want to talk." I raised an eyebrow. Talk about what? He avoided my gaze. Let me guess, I said, crossing my arms. Your mom wants to stage an intervention because I'm ruining her precious tradition. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. It's just dinner. I almost laughed. Sure, just dinner. It wasn't just dinner. I walked into his parents' house and immediately felt the trap. Ethan's entire family was there. His parents, his aunt and uncle, his grandmother, even his cousins who I barely knew. Diane sat at the head of the table, smiling like a villain in a soap opera. I sat down and braced myself. Diane sighed dramatically. Sweetheart, we just want to understand why you're so against our way of life. I gave her a flat look. You mean why I don't want to be treated like unpaid labor? Gasps. A few family members shifted uncomfortably. Ethan's uncle cleared his throat. Marriage is about compromise. I smiled. Exactly. Which is why I'm not the only one doing the work. That's my compromise, splitting things fairly. Diane let out a bitter laugh. Fairly? You mean hiring strangers instead of caring for your husband like a proper wife? Ethan's grandmother, who looked like she had lived through every historical event, nodded in agreement. A wife should make a house a home. Oh, our home is very comfortable, I said. Especially now that I'm not being forced to work like a servant. Diane's face twitched. Ethan, sitting next to me, finally spoke. Mom, she cut him off. I'm worried about your marriage, honey. If she refuses to do her duty as a wife, how do you think this will last? Silence. I turned to Ethan. Yeah, Ethan, how do you think this will last? He froze. That's when I realized something. He didn't know. This whole time, he had assumed I'd eventually give in. That I'd wear myself down and start following their twisted version of marriage. But now, with me doubling down instead of backing off, he had no idea what to do. Diane saw the hesitation in him and pounced. Darling, she said, reaching across the table to grab his hand. It's not too late. You can still fix this. Fix this. Like I was the mistake. I stood up. I'm done here. Ethan looked at me, panicked. Wait, I turned to Diane. You want control over your son? Fine, but you don't get to control me. Then I walked out. Ethan came home late that night. I was already in bed, scrolling through my phone, when he walked in looking exhausted. I'm sorry, he muttered. I set my phone down. For what, exactly? He sighed. For all of it. My mom ambushing you. The list. Everything. I waited, but he continued, you have to understand, this is how I was raised. It's normal to me. I clenched my jaw. So your normal means I have to suffer? He shook his head quickly. No, that's not what I mean. He ran a hand through his hair. I feel like I'm stuck between you and my mom. I exhaled slowly. No, Ethan, you're stuck between the past and the future. You need to decide which one you want to live in. His shoulders sagged. I don't know how to make her happy and make you happy at the same time. I stared at him for a long moment. You don't, I said. Because one of us wants a partnership. The other wants a servant. Pick one. He didn't answer. And that was answer enough. A few days later, I got a fraud alert from my bank. I frowned and checked the notification. $5,000 withdrawal attempt. I sat up straight. That was our joint account. The one Ethan and I opened for shared expenses. I clicked the details. Transaction. Wire transfer to Diane. Last name. My stomach dropped. I immediately called the bank and blocked the transaction. Then I stormed into the living room where Ethan was watching TV like nothing had happened. Did you try to send your mom $5,000 from our account? He flinched. Then, he had the nerve to look annoyed. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? My voice was dangerously calm. You didn't even tell me. He rolled his eyes. It's my money too. I laughed. Oh, so suddenly we share responsibilities? That's funny because last week, I was just the wife who had to do everything alone. He sighed. She just needed help. I cut him off. She's testing boundaries. And you let her. He had no argument. I turned away. I'm taking my name off this account tomorrow. Ethan sat up. Wait, hold on, no, Ethan. I don't trust you. Not with my time. Not with my money. Not with my future. His face fell. Are you leaving me? I paused. Then I walked away without answering. Because I needed to figure that out for myself. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Ethan slept beside me, completely unbothered. I was done. Completely done. The next morning, I went straight to the bank and removed my name from our joint account. I opened my own, transferred my savings, and updated all my direct deposits. Then I did something I should have done a long time ago. I called a lawyer. Not for a divorce. Not yet. But I needed to know my options. I needed to be ready. That night, I came home to something that would have been hilarious if it weren't so pathetic. Diane was sitting in my living room. In my house. With her husband. And a priest. I stared. What is this? Diane smiled sweetly. An intervention. I laughed. Actually laughed. You're joking. Ethan stepped forward. I just thought, maybe you'd be open to hearing their perspective. My perspective, Diane said, crossing her legs, is that you're destroying your marriage because of your selfishness. I looked at Ethan. You let her in our house? He sighed. She's my mom. I nodded. And I'm your wife. Diane scoffed. Not for long, if you keep acting like this. I turned back to her. Let's cut the act. You don't care about our marriage. You care about control. That's what this has been about from the start. She gasped dramatically. How dare you? The priest, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Marriage is about compromise. I held up a hand. No offense, Father, but my marriage is not a church sermon. The priest looked deeply uncomfortable. Diane's husband, silent up until now, finally sighed. Maybe we should go. Diane whipped her head toward him. We are not leaving until she agrees to fix her attitude. And that's when it happened. The moment that sealed everything. Ethan sighed. Loudly. Then, in front of everyone, he looked at me and said, why can't you just make this easy? Easy. Like I was the one making things difficult. Like I was the problem. Like I was supposed to shrink myself down and become less just to make life easier for him. I felt something inside me snap. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply said, I'm done. And then, I walked out. I packed a bag. I didn't know where I was going, I just knew I had to leave. Ethan chased after me, panicked. Wait. Where are you going? I threw my bag over my shoulder. Anywhere but here. He looked like he wanted to beg. You're really doing this? I turned to him. You chose your mom over me. Every single time. You had a choice, Ethan. And you chose wrong. His face crumbled. I can fix this, he whispered. I shook my head. No, Ethan. You can't. And then, I walked away. Diane called me the next day. I almost ignored it. But then I thought, you know what? Let's hear it. I picked up. She sighed like she was already exhausted with me. I really hoped you'd come to your senses. I didn't respond. She continued. Marriage is about sacrifice. You don't just walk away when things get hard. I took a deep breath. Sacrifice is mutual. I refused to be the only one making it. Silence. Then, the real truth came out. You embarrassed my family, she said. There it was. Not concern for Ethan. Not concern for our marriage. Just her pride. I smiled. And I'd do it again. Then I hung up. The divorce was quick. Ethan fought it at first. But eventually, even he realized there was nothing left to fight for. I moved out. Started over. Got my own place, hired my own staff, and built a life where I didn't have to justify my own existence. Diane, I heard, tried to set Ethan up with another, traditional woman. It didn't work. Because deep down, he knew. He had the real thing. And he let it go. If I learned anything from this, it's this. People will always try to tell you what marriage should be. What a wife should be. But here's the truth. A wife is not a servant. A husband is not a master. And tradition is nothing if it only benefits one side. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm just free. And that is a tradition I'll keep.